Welcome, and thank you for joining me today. I'm so grateful to have you here, sharing in this space of growth, healing, and transformation. If you've already subscribed to Loving Everything, thank you for being a part of this beautiful community. Your support means so much, and together, we're creating a space where love in all its forms can be explored and embraced. As you listen to this episode, if it resonates with you, I invite you to like the video and share it with anyone who might benefit from the insights we're diving into today. These conversations are all about expanding our capacity to love ourselves, each other, and the world around us. And if you enjoy what you hear, don't forget to explore my other episodes where we journey into love's deepest, most unconditional forms. Each one is an invitation to reconnect with the parts of yourself that are waiting to be seen, healed, and loved. So thank you for being here. Let's begin. How are you, Jerome?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing so well. Thank you
Yes.
so much for joining me today.
Absolutely.
I can't wait to share your story. Sorry, I had to readjust there. So let's start with, what did you love doing most as a child, and how did it shape who you are today?
Oh, wow. My childhood's a weird thing for me, simply because I really didn't have a lot of aspirations. I think what I liked doing most was like hanging out, being out of my house for the most part, which I'm sure we'll touch on. But I just liked just being out of there, being around my friends, in the neighborhood. But there was times, we went on vacations and stuff, like Jersey Shore, all that stuff, those are good times. And just spending times I had aunts that were really close to me too. So,
So
I'd go to different towns. Yeah.
Go visit them.
Yeah, definitely. So.
And play with friends on the street.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, back east, everybody hangs at your corner. Yeah, you know, and
hangs at the corner.
Yeah.
What do you do on the corner?
Oh yeah. Well, depends on how old you are back east too, because different corners are different ages. So once I moved to a place called Keyport, I went to Cedar Street. I kind of hung out there more. The guys were older; they took me under their wing. But the people I hung out with that were when I was in school for a short period of time. All those are my friends. We hung out, we partied, we drank, smoked, and just did the things we did.
Okay. Okay. How old?
When I started.
Yeah, smoking or drinking.
I started drinking at age 10.
Okay.
I didn't drink to get drunk at those times because of the family dynamics growing up in my house, and I suffered a really big loss at 10, and so I just started drinking. My mom had all these things at the house, right? And they were these like collectible ceramic, like race cars and stuff, but they had whiskey in them. So I started breaking into them, right? And I would drink it not just to get drunk, 'cause again, I didn't understand drunk, but that warm feeling that it gave me at that point in my life just felt good. I'd probably take a couple sips, right? And then I'd be out. Then I'm okay. Something. Then I'd go in my room most of the time. Okay. I spent a lot of time in your room. Yeah, when I was home. So, yeah.
Yeah, we did talk about that. I remember when you shared your story. So can you share a childhood memory that you've never shared with anyone before?
Oh, a childhood memory. I remember, so my aunt and my uncle was staying with us when we lived in a place called Matawan. And he was a drunk. too, and I remember he had his brother come down from Puerto Rico, and so his brother had snuck in my room, and I've really never shared this with anybody, but his brother snuck in my room and got on top of me, and I was screaming, and my big sister came running in and stopped everything and caught everything, and so that was really my first interaction with that kind of behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And
How old are you?
so it was Madawan, so I was probably about 8 years old.
Okay.
Right around that age in there. So, and it's something that I've never thought necessary, but
To share.
I don't know why you just had me do. No.
I have that impact on people. I think it feels nice to be seen and heard.
Yeah.
We were just talking about that off air, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes we carry all of these things in our past, and sometimes it's just nice to be able to let it go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is part of my healing. There's other things that I still want to share that I don't know why I just hold on to them. I think protecting others sometimes too does that, right?
For sure. As we get older, it gets a little bit easier as those people pass or they're not in our lives anymore.
Exactly,
and they can't necessarily be directly impacted by it.
Right.
And I think as children, we're also taught to especially if we have parents who weren't there to emotionally attune us, or to help us deal with our feelings, especially when we have such significant traumatic experiences, that we learn to either hide that from the family or we learn to not share that information because we don't want to upset anyone or we're afraid of being believed, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So you're afraid of allegiances, right? That person is related to whoever, right?
Yeah.
And those are adults and they're scary and so who's going to believe us?
Yeah.
So,
well, and I had no one at that point in my life except for my big sister who actually came in, right? But I didn't have anybody in my
corner
family growing up to talk to.
Yes.
So it was, my mom and my relationship was not a good relationship.
Yeah.
It was like basically our relationship was I was her son, she was my mother, and that was it.
Yeah.
Through my whole life. So,
Yeah.
Well, her life, she passed away at 49. So yeah.
Yeah. So going back to the memory that you shared, once your sister essentially intervened, was that were you ever allowed to speak about that with anyone?
I don't know because I never
tried
shared. To speak about it with anyone.
Okay.
I just
you just pretended like it didn't happen.
Didn't happen.
Okay.
Didn't understand it.
Yeah.
Didn't get it.
Yeah.
Didn't like it.
Do you remember how old you were when you kind of understood what that might have been?
Oh yeah. I would probably say when I was 11, 12,
Then you understood what it meant.
Then I understood what it meant, but
And
I also
what
understood what it meant that wasn't my fault, right? But, we're talking a long time ago, too. It's not like today's, right? So it's kind of like everything's, am I going to be the bad one at it? Is because I was the bad one at everything anyway.
Yeah.
I grew up with a lot of blame on my corner.
Yes.
So,
yeah. Yeah, I know you did. And so we'll just jump right into that. So what was it like growing up in your family? Can you paint us a picture of those dynamics?
Oh, yes. So in my family, it was really quick, too. Is like my mom, I didn't have any male role models, never met my dad, didn't know who my dad was. I didn't have any brothers. I had two sisters and my mom. My mom was what they call a functional alcoholic, but she was definitely an alcoholic, right? And but she owned a restaurant and a bar, and she watched her 5 sisters. She raised her 5 sisters once my grandmother had passed away, and then raised my 2 sisters and me. So raising a boy to her was different,
Very different.
and she loved my sisters to death. Those were her girls, and for me, I kind of got the other side of all that. It was my mom. The only time she's ever told me she's loved me is after I got in trouble, got beat, got something, and she'd say, "Why do you make me do this to you?" And it's like, that's even my fault, right? And
Right.
so that's why I always stayed away from. I ain't telling nothing, right?
Right.
She's never raised a hand on my sisters, never called my sisters out of their name, but me, she's hit me with everything she could get her hands on, if whatever is the closest, from ladles, brooms, her hands, a hanger, belts, things like that. And and I don't say none of this to put my mom down. I think that
Yeah,
my
I know.
mom, it took me a long time to come as an adult, actually, to come to the conclusion that it really wasn't all her fault. She just did the best that she could with what she knew how.
Of course.
And it took a long time,
Of course
And
it did.
so with saying that, I'll be honest. In my house, I was scared. I felt alone. I felt like I didn't belong there because I was always told, "You're just like your dad. You're this, you're that," and he was never there. So I was like, "Then why am I here? And why am I pushed aside?" And so that's how, a lot of it basically was, and it was just me just trying to do what I can. School, I was really bad, which we could bring up in a bit if you'd like, or when you're ready. But I had an aunt and an uncle, and my aunt Barbara moved in, and her husband ended up. My mom threw him out, but so she had a son named Michael, and so when Michael moved in, I was like 5 or 6, and I love that dude.
I know you
That
did.
was my guy. Me and my aunt got along really well, and their room was on the side of the house that mine was. So
You had an ally
yeah, and I had someone to play with,
and someone to protect you
yeah, and
with your
and
aunt,
yeah,
right?
oh, absolutely. My
Yeah.
aunt, that's the one thing. My aunts loved me,
Yeah.
but my aunts were scared of my mother.
Of course
Everybody
they
was scared of
were.
my mother. She
Yeah.
was the oldest, and she
She
had a
was the
different
mother.
dad than them.
She was the
but
matron of the
yeah,
entire family
oh yeah,
lineage.
she started working at age 16.
Yeah.
When my grandmother died,
Yeah.
because she didn't want the family taken apart, and she had a different dad than her sisters, right? So but so when Micah moved in, it was like, hey man, it was just my guy, right? I love that dude, and
he was the same age or a little bit younger, I feel like.
he was young. He
Younger.
went, yeah.
Yeah.
So they moved in when I was 5 or 6, and he was like 3 or 4, right?
So he's like having a little brother.
Yeah, that's what.
Yeah.
Yeah, someone, like I said, when I could
Pal around
just play, I got
and
pictures of me and him too, and I
someone
still
that he
have.
looked up to.
Oh yeah, that was my guy, man. And then when I was about 10, my aunt had woke me up. So Michael went down to Perth Amboy to see his dad, and then he came back and he was really sick, and nobody knew why. But nobody really has seen anything going on with him, right? But so she woke me up, and she said, "I need to call the ambulance. Something's wrong with Michael." And so she handed me Michael, and when she handed to me, and she went to call the ambulance, he was already stiff at that point, and he went into a coma, and he died that night. And
in your arms.
no, he was in a coma in my arms. Then they got him to the hospital, and then he had ended up dying. It was hard for me simply because I wasn't allowed to go to his funeral. Nobody told me what happened.
You couldn't say goodbye.
I couldn't say. All I knew is the only person that I truly, except for my big sister, that I loved and that made me feel safe in my house, and um, gave me that kind of like a little bit more hope and, you know, feelings of love, right, was now gone. And, you know, I didn't know what to do, and I was scared again, and I was alone again. My mom had thrown my aunt out that same year, so now both of them were gone, and so now I was scared even more, right? Because everybody that was close to me is now gone, and I'm right back.
And they get taken away from you.
Yeah, so and that's when I was about 10. That's when I started drinking. That's when I started, you know, hitting those bottles. There's always alcohol in my house, right?
Yeah.
So if it wasn't for my oldest sister, she was my rock my whole life, and she's always tried to protect me. But so yeah, and that's how my family was. It was just like it was the girls and me. Even if we went on vacations, here's the funny thing, is we would go out, like go to Wildwood or go on these vacations, and my sisters were allowed to bring one of their friends, but I wasn't allowed to bring anybody.
So you had different roles.
Different
ways that she interacted with you. Why do you think now, looking back, I mean, I know you didn't understand it when you were a kid, but now you've had some time to reflect. Do you think it's because it reminded your mother of your dad? Do you think she just was unprepared for having a boy? Do you think that she just had a belief system that boys were inherently bad? Do you have any insight on that?
I think that when I look back, my mom you know, she was pretty promiscuous at a point, but she always had, you know, like somebody she was with. But here's the funny part about all this, is that my whole life we thought our dad just left us, and that ended up not being the case. And so about 10 years ago or so, a little bit after 10, probably maybe 8 years ago. So I did that 23andMe, and we've always known this, but my mother would never tell us. And so my sisters aren't, you know, I have a different dad. And, you know, my mom watched my grandmother get assaulted and beat up by my grandfather, right? So my mom's dad, who was the Gilgan, right? He died, and then my grandmother got Pops, which was O'Keefe, and so the O'Keefes and the Gilgans, my mom took care of everybody, right? So we kept our name, but so there's always like this weird Jerry Springer kind of family effect, right? We've never
Mine
really,
was the same way.
You're right, you know, and
yeah, I had the same father, but mine was the same way.
Yeah, right, and
it was completely out of control all the time.
Yeah, she would never tell us, so we thought this guy James was our dad, right? And all three of our dads. But if you look at my family,
you don't look like them.
I don't look like anybody. I'm
the
only dark.
I mean, I look like my dad, but like my two sisters look like,
everybody's Irish. I come from Irish and Italian family. You know, my mom's Gilgans and O'Keefe's, and I don't know my dad, but my sister. I remember when we went to my mother's funeral, and which is a whole thing too. But I was sitting there, and some people didn't even know I didn't know she had a son.
Because she didn't even talk about you.
Yeah, and so my sister would say, "Oh, this is the guinea of the family." You know what I mean? Because I was the only Italian.
For those listening, what does a guinea mean?
Oh, it's an Italian. Back east, we say, you know, it's a guinea is an Italian. So, okay. It's kind of a little slang word. It's not an offensive word, so that's a good thing, right? It's just what we call them, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it is a different time. This is
a different time.
yeah,
Than,
this is much younger than now.
I don't even know if they still say it back then.
Yeah.
I think they say Guidos now. I think they call them Guidos now.
Probably, yeah.
So yeah,
Something similar to that.
Yeah, we used to call them guineas. So
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Let's see. You covered a lot of this, so hold on. Okay. So we touched on your sister.
I had a little sister too.
You had a little sister too.
We hated each other.
Yeah. Okay. Tell us more about that.
Oh
Why?
my God, we hated each other.
What was that about?
Because she got all the attention.
I was the baby. I got all the attention.
Oh my, Terry this and Terry that and Terry. Oh, she's the queen. She's the prince. Everybody, and it just. Oh my God, my oldest sister, she's amazing, and that she would laugh. She's just probably. I've met a lot of people in my life, and my oldest sister, is probably one of the happiest.
This is your older
best
sister.
Human,
Yeah.
Kindest person I've ever met, and she done a lot of stuff for me when I was, when I was kicked out of the house and things, and just trying to do what you can. But my little sister and God, we fought, and I stole from her, and I threw her out of a tree one time, and I had a knife to her throat one time. And when I say that, I just want people to understand is that I became a very angry.
Of course you did.
Person. If you walked into my bedroom, every wall had holes in it where I started kicking holes in the wall.
Yeah, well, you didn't know what to do with all of your feelings.
And I didn't know what. I didn't know how to express them. Didn't know how to talk about them.
And nobody cared to instruct you on that either.
Right.
Yeah, you were left to your own defenses. Yeah.
So I started fighting a lot more, like in school, which I didn't do very well in at all. And so it was, she just, God. But I remember when I got into recovery and got clean, after about 5 years, about being clean in recovery, I called my little sister and I told her, look, I'm really sorry. You didn't deserve that stuff. And she just said, that's all I've ever wanted to hear. Thank you. And we became close for a while. She sent her daughter down here, my niece, because she was struggling. And she stayed with me for a while. Now she's been clean 4 years, and she has 2 twin babies, and she's just doing wonderful. So I feel like
This is your niece?
Yeah, so I felt like I was able to pay it back in some sort. But, because, one thing is I'm a firm believer of out of sight, out of mind, and I've always been that in my life. It's like if I'm not there, if I'm out of sight, I'm out of your mind, And like when I came out here, it was, it felt like everybody forgot me back home. And so, and most of my life I feel like that. If I don't reach out, a lot of people don't reach in. It's just, which is okay. You know what I mean? I don't mind being alone. I just don't like being lonely, if that makes sense.
That makes complete sense. But, in some ways you were abandoned by your family too. Yeah. So you have every right to feel it seems like it's almost been reinforced over your life that you are the person who has to maintain the bridge in the relationship.
Oh, absolutely.
Or make the effort. That has also been my experience. So, I remember you telling that when I originally heard your story, and I could absolutely relate. I was the baby, but I didn't want to be the princess. I didn't necessarily want all of that attention. It's just that I was the last failed attempt for my family to actually have a successful kid. They'd given up on my 2 older sisters. My 2 sisters were tearing each other apart, and they were just like, okay, well, they're just going to be that way, and we will put all of our focus on this one, and she's going to be perfect, right? So I was completely ostracized by the 2 of them. They wanted nothing to do with me, and they teased and bullied and teased and bullied. and picked on me and hurt me on purpose because they didn't know what to do with their anger, and girls are different,
Yeah.
right? So they're not
Oh,
punching
yeah.
walls, they're
Yeah.
slamming your hands and doors and stuff like that, and then
Yeah.
telling you not to tell, your mom them.
Yeah.
So much more emotionally manipulative.
Right. Yes.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
much more. Okay, so not saying, that both aren't very difficult routes. So I can relate is all I'm saying. Okay, so we were talking about your sister and your older sister too, and we'll get through that. You already touched on Michael's death. No one ever addressed that with you. No one ever cared to talk about that loss with you. I'm really sorry for that. I know how emotional you still are about it. I can only imagine how devastating that was. My family dealt with death in a very similar way. My favorite grandmother, died when I was 4, and it was never explained. She just disappeared and never saw her again, and I wasn't allowed to go to the funeral. And then, I also got very close with a cousin. He and I had an amazing relationship. I got to spend time away from my family at his house. And even though his father was incredibly abusive, brother, related to my mother and all that family. So both, very abusive people, but the two of us clung to each other on family vacations. We could always spend that time together during the summer for a week. We would spend time at each other's houses, and we would get a break from being in that family role or the expectations of what our siblings were doing to us or any of that. And I lost him to addiction too. So fortunately, I was much, much older. I'm not saying it wasn't difficult, but at least I had better tools to deal with the death, even though it took me a very, very long time to forgive my family for how they contributed.
Yeah.
For how they contributed to that death. And so, I just want to extend to you so much compassion and empathy for that loss, because I can only imagine how lost you felt. And it felt like you never had anyone in your corner except for your older sister. And
that's true. And then my Aunt Patty, who loved me to death, and
probably would have taken you out of that family situation and environment if she could.
Oh my God! But she wasn't allowed to talk to me.
Yeah,
she wasn't allowed. My mom wouldn't let her talk to me.
Well, because your mom understood.
Yeah.
So she cut that relationship.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I used to run to their house whenever I got in trouble, and then actually that's how I came to Oregon, because I had to get out of New Jersey, and they had moved out here.
Yes.
But and as I was listening to you, and I was thinking at the same time, after Michael's passed away, I don't know what happened, but to me, death wasn't even a big thing anymore, and until I got clean. And now that I'm in recovery, which I've been in for a long time, right? Now I feel it more, and that empathy more, and that closeness, and that lost pieces. But since Michael's, it's been like, somebody passed away. Yeah, they died, man. I heard they died. Somebody, and then when you get in the lifestyle that I lived, somebody, hey man, that's part of the game.
Yes.
I never get connected to it, right? Until I get clean, and now I got to deal with these feelings that, darn it, I didn't want to deal with.
Also, there's a different level of intimacy now because you're more intimate with yourself. You're not pushing it away.
Absolutely.
You're more in touch with those feelings. You're able to actually touch those feelings.
Absolutely.
You weren't able to touch those feelings. Those feelings were really, really difficult feelings to deal with on your own.
Well, it was easier to handle anger than handle hurt and pain and loneliness and rejection and not confusion
and sadness.
A
tremendous amount of grief. So much grief.
Yeah.
Okay, so what led you having to leave your home, and what did the cops tell you when that happened?
So you mean just my mother's house?
Yes.
Okay, so
We're going back in time. We've been
okay,
jumping around. Sorry.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's okay because
Yeah.
I left New Jersey to come here for a
Yeah,
reason too.
yeah,
But
yeah.
so I started once we moved to a different part of town called Keyport, right? And I started drinking more. I didn't know what a teenage drunk alcoholic was,
Yeah.
but I was a teenage alcoholic
Yeah,
by the
yeah.
time I was 14.
Well, we weren't talking about it back then.
Yes, and
Yeah.
I had this guy who was just like, he was like my superhero, man. He used to walk around with no shirt on, and he had all these tats, but he always took me under his wing, right? Yeah, and
I bet you wanted to be tough like him.
oh my God, yeah, he was the guy, man. And but he would give me cigarettes and give me alcohol, you know what I mean? And he was just cool. But then he gave me some marijuana, a joint, and I went down and smoked that joint. And when I did, all of a sudden, the weed hit me, right? And everything just went like that quiet. Everything, like Michael was gone. My mother was gone. School was gone. My little sister was gone. All that stuff disappeared, and the pain. And I thought to myself, this is what I've been looking for.
Yeah,
this is it.
Magical experience.
Yeah, right. This is it right here.
Yeah, it just quieted my brain.
Yeah, everything just went away, and I just was like, "This is what I've been searching for." I know, right?
Yeah.
Right? It's just like,
it was amazing.
Yeah, this is what I've been searching
for my entire life.
Yeah.
It was just quieting it down, taking it down a notch.
Yeah.
Yep. Because the intensity was just too much.
Yeah. And then I just started doing like, by the time I was 14 going on 15, I was doing cocaine, smoking weed, smoking cigarettes, drinking, doing mescaline, acid, Quaaludes. Back then was Quaaludes, and I just stayed as high as I could and as drunk. I've already ran away from home 3 times. And now I'm getting, starting to get in trouble with the police in the neighborhood and all this stuff. And then a friend of mine was selling weed, and he asked me if I wanted to sell weed. So I started selling weed on the corner, marijuana, on the corner. And I was arrested the first time. And when I got arrested, they took me to the jail in our town, right? But everybody knows, you know what I mean? It's like, and they certainly all know me and my mom and stuff. So they called my mother, and she goes, "Okay, well, just send him home." So they sent me home, and I go home, and she comes home that night, and it was a mess. Well, I was running so fast to get out of the house.
Yeah,
we lived in a 2-story house.
Yeah.
I jumped out the window head first, right?
You're
my
like,
sister shut the window on me, because my big sister, because she didn't want me going head first. My mom come in and grab me and just kicked my
Beat
ass.
the heck out of you.
Oh my God. I said, "I'm bleeding." She says, "Good," and hit me again. Everybody was scared of my mom. But so we would sing that.
Everyone was scared of my mom too.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Anywhere we went, people were scared of her. The dentist's office told me as an adult how scared they were when they would see our name on the calendar. Because she would come in and just take over and tell everybody off and boss them around. And
that's my mom. So she, then I was grounded, and then I wasn't grounded. I was sneaking out the window and everything anyway. I hated being in my house. And then I got arrested again for selling weed. And by now I had been at this place called Asbury Park Shelter. It's a little shelter for boys, what they call incorrigible boys, right? So
they would not dare to call them that now.
Exactly. That's what
we did back then.
Yeah, and that's the first big word I've ever learned was incorrigible.
I'm sure you were like, what does that mean?
Yeah. So they then I was by the time I was 16, I was at Freehold Detention Center. I was at I went to Rahway State Penitentiary for the Scared Straight program, things like that.
What's the Scared Straight program?
So people now watch Scared Straight It's a TV show they used to have here with the kids in the jails. Well, the Scared Straight program that originated from was at Rahway State Penitentiary, which is the New Jersey State Penitentiary now. But they would bring us kids in there, and we would sit in this auditorium, and these lifers would come in
And talk about their experience.
talk about this. And here's the thing, Andrea, right? I really was sitting there like, man, these guys are cool.
Yeah, that sounds cool.
You know what I mean? And wow, these guys are telling us their stories. Wow, you know, all this stuff,
Yeah.
right? But so
Because danger didn't scare you. You were in danger all the time.
yeah, so
Yeah.
to me it was like, wow, man, you know,
Yeah.
and but
It
one
was
guy,
street cred.
right, exactly,
Yeah.
right?
You were like, fuck yeah.
Yeah,
Look at them. Yeah.
And then, so when I was arrested,
Made you tough.
Well, yeah, it started just making me more callous, right? About like,
Same.
and it's a funny thing because they took everybody's
And that
shoe.
anger too, right?
Oh my God, it
Yeah.
was and they took everybody's shoe, one shoe from all the kids, right? And a lot of different groups went, but the one we went to, and this dude, chest out there, he takes everybody's shoes, but he didn't take mine. And it was just a weird thing for me because when he didn't take mine, in my brain, I'm thinking, yeah, he didn't take mine, no, did he? You know what I mean? That's what I think because I think I'm invincible at this age. But then they came behind me and said, hey, you want to spend the night here? Well, hell no, I don't want to spend the night here. You're right. They just talked about how they're going to, wrap you in a sheet and, the whole works. I'm like, nah, I'm good, man. And,
Yeah.
But it was an experience for me, but it just didn't really scare me. It kind of just made me see that, wow, there are people out there, man, and this doesn't sound so bad, right? And so when I was arrested the second time for
You were
selling
just looking
weed,
for connection.
anything,
Yeah, somebody to accept you.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
Be part of something.
yeah, and that's who I was, and back east even, and then even here, that's what I strive for is. I didn't care why people were around me, and I knew why they were, especially when I was selling drugs, and which I did here too. I knew why people were around me. It's because I had what they wanted. But it was okay because as long as they were around me, right? I could be in a room with 100 people and still be the most loneliest person in that room.
Of course.
But my other thing was
they needed you.
They need me,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah,
that's why I sold.
Yeah.
I even did a test one time. If we have time, I'll tell you about it. But so when I got arrested the second time, they called my mother, and my mother said, well, don't let him out. He's not coming to my house. And so I said, she's just drunk or something, man. So they let me out the next day. I get out and I walk home. I think I was about 16, 15, at the end of 15, 16 at this point. I walk home and I get to my house and everything I have is out in the front yard. She emptied my room, everything. And so I was
Furniture,
like,
everything?
Everything. There was nothing left in that room. And so I go to open the door. The door's locked. So I knock on it. She comes. She opens the door. And she said, don't ever step foot in my house again, and slammed the door in my face. And at that point, I didn't go to my mother's house invited for many, many years. I mean, actually, my sister used to throw bags of food out the window, my big sister. In the wintertime, she would sneak me in because my mom was at work. She worked a lot, but you never know when she's going to pop in, right?
Yeah.
But my sister had a big walk-in closet, and what she would do is sneak me in, and then she would throw all her clothes over top of me. And so I wouldn't get caught, and I wouldn't be cold. And but we got caught, and
didn't your mom hear you snoring?
she heard me snoring.
Yeah.
I'm a snorer.
You were passed out because you had nowhere to sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Just trying to sleep somewhere safe.
Yeah.
That wasn't
and
cold.
That's how I got busted.
In your home, actually.
Yeah.
You were trying to sleep in your home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
you had nowhere to go.
No. I just kind of ran the streets and slept outside for a while. slept with a friend of mine who had a trailer in his back of his dad's locksmith shop, and then stayed with another friend of mine here and there, but
Just
nothing ever
constantly in
lasted.
crisis.
Yeah, nothing ever lasted because, I just drank all the time and I just used drugs all the time. And so my behaviors and my stuff was always the same, and I was always fighting and I didn't fight to win fights, you know what I mean? I just fought because I was angry.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
if you hit me, it was
everything,
good.
everything was too much to handle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's just the way I lived my
everything set you off.
life. Yeah. So that's when I was really out, and that's when I started doing a lot of criminal activity. I started breaking into stores, robbing houses. If you remember my story, I always told you, and if I broke into someone's home, or in New Jersey, just about every store has a deli, right? And I'd always make something to eat because I didn't know if I was going to eat that day. And anything I took after, because that, I knew I'd be hungry.
Yeah.
And
so you're just breaking in just to eat.
And
to be off the street for a little bit.
Yeah, and to try to survive out there.
Yep.
And that's when my life really turned from. See, because most of my life I thought I was just a kid partying, had it made, and then it just turned into survival.
It went from bad to significantly worse.
Yeah.
Overnight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and it was it was tough, but it just made me just more angrier, more like F everybody. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Because
you became really callous.
Yeah.
In life, right? And I've always been honest about all my stuff. I knew how to break out of my mother's house, so I knew how to break in, and I stole from her, and because
But you were 16.
Yeah, my sisters got everything they wanted, and I felt like. And I almost feel like this really started my whole criminality piece. Is the only way I'm going to get stuff is if I take it, and if I get it myself.
Well, how were you going to get it at 16, Jerome?
Yeah. Well,
how could you have possibly supported yourself at age 16?
Oh, exactly the way I did.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
How could anyone support themselves at 16? There's a reason why you're still considered a child.
Yeah.
It's because you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you were just doing what you needed to do to survive. It makes sense. I mean, irregardless of being honest about it, I'm sure there's some guilt and shame about what you've done, but also you were trying to survive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot. I think I got, when it comes to that guilt and shame, I definitely always feel a lot of guilt, and the shame piece I just continue to work on, because I can make amends for the guilt pieces, right? The amends pieces is, the shame pieces is I've still to this day, I work on stuff and I know when it comes up and I got to really be careful of it. And
a lot of it is carried shame too. It wasn't even yours.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, it was just kind of dumped on your lap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I try to live my life, not having other people or bringing people's other shame up, you know what I mean, where it's going to harm them. When I was in my addiction in my life, I didn't care. Look, man, what are you going to say, man? You know what I mean? Don't be a baby. Knock it off. Right?
Yeah.
Let me tell you a story, right? That kind. But
and probably some shock factor there too.
Yeah. So it's I tell you, some of the stuff that, and I don't talk about in my story when I'm speaking because there's so much, right?
Yeah.
But many times, everybody goes home at 5 o'clock back east for dinner. It's just the way it is, right? But I sat at the corner by myself, when the corner that we hung out with was a block away from the house, and I would be sitting on the corner. Everybody be going, I see people going into my mother's house, you know what I mean? And I'm not
Just watching.
allowed, just watching and just wishing,
You could go in. Yeah.
you know, or how come none of them's walked over here
And checked in
said,
on
hey,
you.
you okay?
Yeah.
You know,
Are you doing
again,
all right?
that's where that out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
And that's why that stuck with me so much, right?
Yeah.
So I have to walk over there, but you know where I'm at, you know, so. And I don't say that as a victim. I just say that as
You were a victim.
as a as someone who has had to live life on life's terms, even though because life's not always fair, right? And but I don't.
That
told
sounds
me
like a boomer.
yeah.
That's a boomer belief. Life isn't fair.
Yeah, right.
I can't tell you how many times my mom told me life isn't fair. I'd say that's not fair. She'd say life isn't fair. What a very difficult thing to tell a kid, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's an easy way out.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is. And just wipe out any creativity, any imagination, any inspiration, any joy, anything, any hopefulness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any
In one fell
validation
swoop.
is,
Yeah.
you know.
How dare you dream
Yeah.
that something might be better than this?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, you know, it's your fault. You caused it.
Yeah. Or, yeah, give you something to cry about.
Oh, not that. Yeah.
That one from that generation, like,
Yeah.
wow, they thought very differently, and it's how they were raised.
Yeah.
It absolutely is how they were raised, and I'm with you. My mom did the best that she could with what she knew and what she was shown. I think what inspired me about meeting you is that you and I are both transitional characters in our family.
Yeah.
We both were like, okay, this is gonna stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not going to pass this on. Yeah. So I admire and respect you for that because you were handed a very difficult hand, and things could have gone very differently in your life.
Yes.
Things could have gotten
well, absolutely.
Yeah.
And which I'm sure we'll touch on, but because it wasn't for certain things, I know I'd either be in prison or dead right now.
Yep.
But there's a reason I'm not.
Yep.
And I have to look at that and know that I have a path and I have to stay on that. And no matter how difficult it gets, and let me tell you something.
It gets
for
difficult.
Anybody out there, man, I am not perfect.
Nope,
so,
I am not either.
But I do the next right thing.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I'm always trying to be a better version of myself.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so back to you sleeping and getting caught in your sister's closet. Okay, so now you're living on the street, and somehow you end up in Oregon with that aunt. So how did that happen? Catch us up on that.
So, again, that's I'm sorry. That's how my whole life was going.
Yeah.
Basically, it was just partying and not working and not doing nothing. But the cops were always telling me, you know, and if anything happened in my neighborhood, it was always get Gilgan and Mateo. That was my partner, my friend, right?
Mm-hmm.
And me and him were pretty tight. But then, the cops always tell me, when we're 18, we're going to get you. You're going to prison, you watch when you're 18. And I says, yeah, whatever, man. You know what I'm saying? And so Christmas Eve, I got into a fight, of course, and I had my nose broke. So I had these two big black eyes, and my face was swelled. And then New Year's Eve, I went out and I was at about 4 parties. It was like 3 in the morning. We stopped at a 7-Eleven, me, a friend of mine, and some other people. And so we go in. Guy behind the stand, the counter, starts blaming me for stealing something. And I'm just like, dude, what are you talking about, right? And I'm drunk. And it was bound to happen, right? And so anyway, he grabs something from a bat or something from underneath the table counter. So fight broke out. It got pretty. I got away. My friend didn't get away. So the next day, my big sister, had sent for me and said. So I went and talked to her. She said, "You have to leave. They're looking for you. You're going to prison." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And she goes, the cops are after you, and you have to get out of here. And right in that moment, like, where am I going to go?
Yeah.
I
You didn't have anywhere to go anyway.
I don't have nowhere to. Yeah, it's like
what do you mean I got to get out of here?
Yeah, this is the only thing I know, right?
And I'm also far away from even what I want to be. Yeah, where I want to be to begin with.
Right,
yeah,
exactly.
So you're
right?
pushing
It's
me
like,
even further away.
Where am I going to go? Go over 2nd Street?
Yeah, yeah, like.
Right. So she says, well, Aunt Patty and Uncle Bobby, that's my family, my aunt who lived in Jersey City, who I used to run to all the time when I run away or I get in trouble and hide out, right? And they said she lives in this place called Portland, Oregon. And I'm like,
Oregon.
What the hell is what's Portland, Oregon? And none of us know, right? We're all like, I don't know. Some volcano blew up and there's lumberjacks. And I'm like,
yeah. We were so misinformed back then.
Oh my God. I just didn't know. So I'm like, well, a volcano, my life sucks anyway. I'll go to where there's a volcano. So they never knew I was showing up. They had, I don't know where my sister got my cousin Bobby's address. So my sister gave
probably
me.
A phone book.
I don't, it was in.
Your mom's phone book or something.
Something, whatever it was, but she gave it to me, and it turned out to be the wrong address, but it was funny how I found them. But so I get on this bus, my sister says, okay, I'll give you everything. We'll leave tomorrow. So nobody knew and nobody could know I was leaving. The next day we went. My sister gave me all her money that she had in her tips. She was a waitress. All her money she gave me. Went to the bank, gave me a bunch of money, bought me a ticket and all, and took me to the bus station. And I came out to this place called Portland, Oregon, and I'll tell you though what happened.
You're 18.
Yeah, what happened was I got on that bus, and my sister's the last one I seen, right? My rock, right? And all these things are going through me, right? I'm like, and all of a sudden I start crying on this bus. And I started crying because here I am leaving the only thing I knew, which was what did I do? I didn't do nothing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, you still don't know what you did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to a place where I know nobody or nothing. So I'm just going to be alone again, right?
All over again.
I'm leaving. So
everything you know.
And it was the first time I felt myself cry since Michael died. And I was, I realized, I felt like I was that 8, 9-year-old kid, 6-year-old kid in my mother's house. I was scared. I was alone. I didn't know what to do. But I said to myself, you know what? I'm going to get to this place called Portland, Oregon, and I get here, and I'm going to change my life. I'm going to get a job. This is all I'm telling myself. I'm going to stop drinking. And so I get here, and I end up walking past my aunt's house. I walked from the bus station all the way to Johnson Creek Boulevard in Southeast Portland.
Jesus.
I stopped at this Midas muffler shop to get a drink of water, and then walked, and I'm like, I got to turn the other. So I come all the way back. I go to that same muffler place, and that's the street, right? So I go up the street, and I look in this window, and here's my aunt cutting my cousin's hair. And I knock at the door. They didn't even know I was coming. And she said, what'd you do? I told her. She was, of course you could stay here and hide here. And so I was here. Again, it was with my Aunt Patty, who loved me. Her kids were so mad because she loved me so much. She really did. And
she's trying to make up for everything you experienced.
Because she knows how my mother was, and she knows what her mother did.
My
mother did to me. And
of course she did.
My mother treated her the same way.
I'm sure she did.
So, and then I got a job.
Her kids never experienced that, so how could they even relate?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So.
And how could she convey?
Yeah. No, right, yeah.
Yeah, so you guys, it's like you had a secret history together. Yeah,
absolutely.
Of understanding.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's where, it's, and I got down here and I got a job, And I was a dishwasher. First thing I did learn was that Oregonians are very serious about their name, and I do call it Oregon now. It's not Oregon. I get it, right? Serious.
I just brought that up because the son of a woman.
Oh my God, people are serious.
He calls it Oregon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I got a job. I was a dishwasher, and I moved all the way up to a cook. And but then I started drinking again. Started meeting people who smoked weed. Started doing some drugs. It was pretty easy here.
Yeah. So what year is this? Or
this is in 1981.
Okay, the 80s.
Yeah, it was the 80s. Mm-hmm. So, and there was a lot of stuff they called back then. It was called crank, not meth. Yeah. It was a different drug.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Same thing, but way different. But anyway,
for those who are not familiar, what's the differences?
Okay, well, prope dope. It's really prope dope, but it's called crank. Is you can't smoke it, right? And it's made with like red phosphorus and all this other stuff. Then when the government put all the holds on buying ephedrine pills and all that stuff, and buying red phosphorus. People moved over to the Sudafed, mm-hmm. and that's where meth came in, and plus you could smoke meth. Any drug, I believe, and I could be wrong. I think any drug, once you know you could smoke it, becomes an epidemic.
Why?
Because it's convenient. A lot of people don't want to use needles. A lot of people don't want to shoot. People smoke cigarettes. People smoke weed. People smoke.
It's more accessible.
So it's more accessible.
Mm-hmm.
They think that people who smoke crack cocaine, all these drugs, right? So I always thought that once you can smoke something, it's going to become an epidemic. It's just how I felt, and I could be wrong. I don't know, but. So then,
I think you have some experience. I think you could be right.
I think, because
both personal and professionally. Yeah, I think you can speak to this. Yeah.
I myself, I swore, oh my God, I would never use needles or nothing. What I learned what an addict was somebody who from Geraldo Rivera, right?
Yeah.
Was shooting heroin in doorsteps of New York.
That
right?
looked very different.
It looked way different. It was disgusting, man. I was like, no, I would never use a needle. Yeah. I'd certainly never use heroin. Yeah. Definitely not a needle. And
exactly.
So now
all the other drugs are okay.
Everything else is okay.
Yeah.
Well, because
they didn't talk about that.
They didn't call you an addict when you did that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They didn't call you an alcoholic. Yeah.
No, you were a partier.
Yeah. You're just having a good time.
There was such a stigma on heroin that you're a junkie. You're an addict. That was
bad.
the big thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
With coke and crank
shame.
and all that. Yes, you're just a partier. Oh yeah, I'm partying, man.
It even got tied up with the AIDS epidemic, right?
Yes.
Anybody who used needles, right?
Yes,
it's so dirty.
Yes, it definitely taboo no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started partying again, lost that job. Then my aunt and my uncle, my uncle had told me one time, he said, hey, do a line of this. And he gave me my first line of crank. Well, we'll just call it meth. So everybody knows it's all to get is speed, right? Yeah. So I did a line of this, and it was like the first time I ever smoked weed, because I couldn't go back home. Because if I went back home, I was going to prison, right? And there was a thing with that, why those charges got dropped. So, but there is a reason I never left here either, because I had my first daughter here. But so we did do this, and now this is my drug now, because now it felt like that weed, man, and it gave me all this energy, and I was just a guy.
Different
my God, yes.
Yeah.
So about a year after that, and then, again, now I'm just a guy partying in Oregon, right?
Sure.
And then my aunt and my uncle split up, and I went to my uncle's house, and he said, here, I want to show you something. He goes, don't do this with anybody else. Don't ever try this by yourself and all that. I'm, what, man? What are we doing? What are you talking about? So he takes me into his room and has a needle filled with speed and gives me my first shot. Never in my life did I ever think I would shoot drugs into my body. That day, I stopped at a pharmacy and bought needles, and I ended up using drugs intravenously for over 21 years of my life, and
all because of that one incident.
Yeah, and
because it took the pain away.
Oh my God, and it was it. That was it.
I know.
And I stayed up for weeks, but it also started a lot of other stuff too, right? Because
of course it did.
I became a drug dealer here, and I was violent here, and I was. It led me to many, many other drugs, relationships that were that I've ruined, male or female, just because I was violent. You know what I mean? You could be my friend, and what'd you say?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was paranoid.
Yeah.
I didn't trust nobody.
Yeah.
Because I was here. I didn't know nobody. Everybody else knew everybody here. I'm just this guy, and I'm always thinking somebody, but you ain't getting up, man. I'm nobody's punk, and I've done some stuff that were violent. And, I've had stuff done to me, I'm not that guy that's going to sit here and say I was a tough guy or I was a badass, because I don't think I am. But I know that I'm very selfish, and I have disregard for anybody's life, their children, anything when it comes to my money and my drugs. And I lived that lifestyle.
You mean back then?
Back then.
Yeah.
Oh, today I couldn't even imagine.
Yeah.
I couldn't even imagine calling a female the B word. It just does. I can't imagine it. And it was a regular term, you know what I mean? And I couldn't even imagine talking to a female the way I used to, because, I didn't, with the relationship with me and my mom and the relationship with my sister and all that, I didn't trust women. And,
why would you?
Yeah, and I never... I always had to make sure everything was on my terms so I can end it when I'm ready, because I'm not going to hurt. And I had others to make sure that
I'm going to hurt you before you hurt me.
Exactly.
Heck yeah.
The other part of that
you learned
is
that you had to protect yourself.
Oh, absolutely. And if I'm in pain,
costs.
Yes. And if I'm in pain, you're going to feel pain.
Yeah.
I'm not feeling this shit alone.
Oh, yeah.
And
if anything, I'd let me dump it on your lap so that I don't have to deal with so much.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's funny because there's really no women that you'll find that, except for my youngest children's mother, who don't really like me because I got clean. But women that'll talk bad about me, they
don't like you now that you got clean? I'm sorry, I missed that part.
My two youngest children's mother, that's the only woman that will talk bad about me.
Is because you got clean?
Yeah, and she hasn't. And I raised our last two by myself.
I see. Yeah. So you're the bad guy. Yeah.
I'm the bad guy, yeah.
Because you're not enabling her.
Right.
Yeah. And you make her look bad.
Yes.
Because she doesn't want to look at what
Oh, my God, yeah.
She does not want to look at her stuff.
Oh,
yeah.
no.
It's so much easier to just focus on you.
Oh, my God. I would never ask her for anything, because she just calls me every name in the book. And I can't. And not only
you replicated your mom.
Right. And I'm not going to go back there, and you're not going to pull me back, And
you replicated that relationship with your mom.
So, but other than that, it's just like, and then I started doing this, and that's when all of a sudden my life kind of went even crazier. I left New Jersey not to go to prison.
Mm-hmm. And then you made it worse.
Come to Oregon and end up doing 7 years in penitentiary.
Well, what had really changed, right? No one had really stepped in and said, hey, hold on a second. I mean, you had roof over your head and shelter
Yeah.
and somebody to love on you, but ultimately no one was really helping you through all of the stuff.
Yeah.
And you were pretty cooked by that point anyway.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know that you would have taken the help or been totally open to it anyway. There was a hard protective shell on the outside of you, and no one was getting in there. No one
nobody
was
was.
penetrating that until you decided to let it down, right?
Well, because you're going to hurt me, and I know you're going to hurt me because I always get hurt.
That makes you vulnerable.
Yeah, and that's not happening.
No.
And I lived that for a very long. There's only one person who's ever really, truly got me to be my vulnerable, and that's my ex-wife, Carolyn, who we're
different wife than the first one that
no,
talks poorly about you?
this is my only wife. I've never,
okay.
Yeah. So we were together for a long. Every time she'd break up with me and leave me because I'm an animal, you know what I mean? And I'm running around and doing this.
You mean you were?
I was, yes. And she.
Sometimes you talk about things like they're in the present.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, she. The day I met her, it was like one of those instant things, and
I'm sure
we've
you
been
trauma
together
bonded
over 30-something years, and over time, we're still best friends. Actually, she just texted me this morning.
Okay.
We talk all the time. We co-parent. Great. She's I don't know where my children would have been without her. She helped me raise my youngest two also, and.
So wait, let's clarify because I'm confused. You said this is your only ex-wife, but this is still the one that talks shit about you?
No, the one after her. So when I got kicked out of treatment in 1999,
you remarried.
from DePaul, we had not been married yet.
Oh,
we were together, right? And we had kids, and but she. I got kicked out. She came to pick me up, and she told me I can't do this anymore. And she said that I have to let go for the kids. And she was right, She did my prison times with me. She did my everything that I did.
Do you think if she hadn't stood up to you that you wouldn't have changed? Was that the turning point?
No, not yet.
Okay.
No, because
that wasn't enough.
That actually hurt me more because she's never said that to me. On you. And when she said that,
it just re-entered that trauma wound of everybody else abandoning you and proving you right, that no one ever sticks around and no one loves you really.
Right, and everybody gives up at some point.
At some point, and, you're gonna wear them out.
So she. And then we split up. We were split up for about 13 years. And then I got clean with it in 2003. And a couple of years went by when I was clean, and we got back together after about 13 years. And we got married because we believed that we were supposed to be married and we're supposed to be soulmates. But the thing that had happened was, I think that although we went in different directions and met in the middle, we were always still close, right? And I'd be high or be something, and she would never turn. She'd stop talk to me. But she at this point we met in the middle, and everybody knew we were supposed to be together, right? And things just we realized that we had changed. And that's what made things so much easier for both of us, right? Because we both love each other and we'll always love each other. And she's always sees me for who I truly am, and always has, even at my worst, right? And so now we're still really close, and
but you're not married.
No, we're we've been split. Well, I guess we're separated. We're just waiting to do the paperwork. We both got different houses and all this, and I don't know why we're scared. You know what I mean? It's like one of those things, but she's just a wonderful woman. She's actually like my big sister was, right? But as far as helping me and always being there for me and never turning her back on me. And that's why when she told me she had to let go that one time.
You understood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I tell you, if it wasn't, I thank her all the time for, just raising my kids and being the mother she is, because she's never, ever, she taught me something that was really important. And what she had taught me was she would never, ever take my kids from me. Never. But she always tell me, I'll never take them from you, but I'll always keep them safe. And she would bring it. If I was high or something was up, she'd say, I don't think today's a good day to leave them. And I'd be okay. I'd say, okay, and because I knew she was right.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I think people just want to dump their kids off, and like they, especially in that lifestyle, right?
Yep.
And she hasn't drinking in over 23 years, right? Like longer than I've ever been clean. And so she...
it's not a competition.
Right, exactly, right? And which is great.
I'm sure she has other addictions, just not visible ones. Yeah.
Flowering, yes, right?
Yeah.
She... being a grandma's her biggest thrill in life, and so she gets that. And so, and that's how that is. But, yeah. But she's taught me a lot about who I am today as far as being a parent, being humble, So, yeah, she's probably one of the most important people that's been in my life, except for my kids, which I'm very fortunate about. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think I interrupted you. Were you going to tell me the biggest lesson that she taught you?
That it was because with my two youngest children, their mom struggles. She still struggles, and I get it. And I mean, it's okay if that's the life you choose. But I've always told my children that, I'm not going to keep you from your mom, because there'll be times when they couldn't see her for a month, and I would tell them, your mom is just struggling now. Your mom got things. I'll never take you from her, but it's my responsibility to keep you clean.
And safe.
I'm safe. I'm sorry, not clean.
Yeah.
Keep
safe.
You safe. And they understood that, right? And she taught me, things like that. And I think that was the most important, that it's okay, right? And it is my responsibility, which was hard because I don't know. I didn't know how to be a parent. And she did everything. I don't know how to be a parent.
Well, apparently you figured it out.
Yeah. So.
You figured it. You found your way there. Okay, you covered a lot of this, so let me just read through real quick. Is there anything that you would change about how you were raised?
There are things I think that I would change. Depending on, and I don't know if this makes sense, but if I was just like part of something, I mean, I don't know why I was, yeah, I just think that if I wasn't pushed aside, if I wasn't looked at as like I didn't belong there, if I, there's always a lot of questions in my head, right? And I tell you, I used to look at other families, right? And I'd look at that and I was like, why ain't I really? What's going on? I used to lie to people and say, they'd be like, where's your dad? I said, oh, no, my dad died in the army or something, because I was embarrassed and I had this shame, right?
Yes.
And but I think that, if my mom would have just said to me once in a while, I'm sorry, I do this, or I'm sorry, or not
Any
blame it on
responsibility.
me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not get mad at my sister and tell my sister, why do you baby him? And
Yeah.
her have to say, well, somebody should.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's just so much of that. And I get that my mom did the best she could, but you could have did a little better.
Yeah.
And I know you went through it. She was going through her own pain, her own stuff. And
it didn't justify
yeah.
how she was parenting you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, when my mom died, my sister called me, and she was crying. She was really upset. And she says, hey, Mom, he's in the hospital. She's not gonna make it through the hospital, but she's looking at these pictures, and every time she gets to your picture, she stops and stares at it. And she goes, will you come back home and see her before she passes away? And I sat there, and Carolyn was with me. You know, it was just great because she consoled me. I mean, it was hard for me because, you know, I was crying.
Of course.
And I just said,
there's so many feelings around it.
yeah. And
you probably didn't even know what the right thing was to do.
I didn't. And till this day, I'm okay with what I did, I think. But my sister said, will you please come? And I said,
I can't
do that. And she goes, why? And I says, because if I walk in that room, it's for the wrong reasons. If I walk into that room, it's just because I'm supposed to, because she's my mother. And I don't think that's the right thing to do, you know. And that was a difficult decision for me, right? And with that, I have thought since then, like, all I wanted to do, and if I was to go back, the only reason I would is because I would have wanted to ask her, why me? Mm-hmm. You know, why was I different? Mm-hmm. You know, why didn't you love me? Mm-hmm. You know? Mm-hmm. And I just couldn't do it.
I don't blame you.
I didn't. But I went back for her funeral, you know. And it's funny because, like I was saying earlier, I went back for her funeral and I got hurt even more because people are like, I didn't even know she had a son. Yeah. And I'm like, what the
yeah.
You know? And
it's like you'd been erased.
Yeah. So, you know, and I continued to use at that point too. It's not like I stopped. Yeah.
Yeah, because you had to numb it.
Yeah. It was. Yeah. So
too painful
it was
to
hard.
comprehend otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, and I shared that with a few people who have asked, you know, and they're like, why? But you didn't want to go. I guess you have to understand. And it's,
I understand.
Yeah, some people don't, and that's okay because I know why I had to do what I had to do. And maybe her just looking at my pictures, maybe she needed to do that.
Well, you came to peace with it the way that you needed to come to peace with it.
Yeah.
It was your decision. It's not like your ex-wife turned to you and said, this is what I think you should do. You came to the right decision for you, right? And you have to live with that, right?
Yeah.
And so it can only be your decision. And no one can tell you what is right.
Right.
Only you know what is right for you. And I don't judge you for not wanting to open up the hurt.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because she hadn't cared for that pain in the past.
Yeah.
So in all likelihood, it's more than likely, although we don't know.
Yeah.
But it's more than likely that she would still not have progressed enough in her own self-development to be able to recognize and or support you or take responsibility at that point in her life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she just always, I don't get her, man. I didn't get her. Like, so the charges got dropped against my friend at that night at that store.
Yeah.
So mine got dropped because you can't just charge one. So
right.
So now I could go back home.
You could have.
And I did. I went back home, and it was a big party. And my mom. So I was there probably about almost a week, maybe 5 days or something. And everybody's just like, oh my God, Jerry's home and da 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 da. It's when I went by Jerry. They all know me as Jerry. Jerry's home, and they had barbecue, and we're all drinking and getting drunk and having fun. And so this really hurt me because my sister, my big sister, this is the first time she ever said something like this to me. But she said, so we're not doing anything. Everybody's having a good time. I get a lot of attention on me, right? And so I guess my mother's boyfriend at the time, he was there too. Them two showed up. I guess he had hit my mom. And so my mother told everybody, do not tell Jerry. Because it doesn't matter what my mother did. You're not going to put your hands on my mother, right? Anyway, so everybody's saying that. And so the night before I'm leaving, we're having this big party, you know, all the family and stuff is there. My mom comes up to me and says to me, you know, she's talking and she goes, you know, yeah, he's a pretty good guy. He's only hit me once. And I flashed, right? So I go, and now I hit this dude, and now my cousin jump on him, and all of a sudden my sister says, see, you haven't changed. And I said, God damn it, she set me up again, man. Mm-hmm. Why couldn't I just be happy that day? It was the day before I'm leaving, but she had to do something to set me up to look like the bad guy again. I ended up.
Well, it was much easier to blame you then.
Oh yeah, it was pretty crazy. Like, and so I didn't go back the whole time. That, you know, and then she had. That's when I think I knew that I can't go back. It's the wrong reasons, but yeah, she's a funny woman.
Difficult. Do you feel like there was a lesson in that?
In
having a mother like that?
Ooh, I think.
What has it taught you?
Well, at least today in life, it has taught me that, you know, for one, that I am a good person. And I don't even consider that. I try to be a good human being, not just a good person, right? But the lessons it's taught me is that earlier in my life, it taught me don't ever trust anybody. But today in my life, that not everybody's out to get me, not everybody's to hurt me. I can be loved, you know? Although I'm still always a little bit, you know, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Standoffish, or keep people at arm's length. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and when people tell me that, I second guess it. You know.
Of course.
Yeah, it's only a few people, you know, my kids, but you know, where I say I love you a lot of times, you know, I'd rather just say I got love for you, or I've always thought the word was just used because you're supposed to, you know what I mean? Stuff like that.
It was contractual. Mm-hmm.
But I think that what taught me about with my mother is that I don't have to treat people the way she did. You know?
Do you think maybe it taught you some strength and resilience?
I know that it taught me how to survive. I don't think it taught me how to survive emotionally for a long time. Physically and life-wise, yeah, but it really never taught me how to emotionally. And I think that I have become resilient because of that, but I also believe that resiliency has caused me harm also.
Of course.
You know, and so I try to balance it out, but it definitely has taught me how to be, you know, some woman, I can't remember who, I think my parole officer sent me for this counseling thing, which I didn't, yeah, okay, right? Now I'm a counselor. She had said to me, we were going over stuff, and she goes, you know, I just want to tell you that it's not your fault. And I went, what? And she goes, that wasn't your fault. And for some reason, all of a sudden I went, wow, nobody's ever told me that. Mm-hmm. nobody ever had. And when that woman told me that, I was like, wait a minute, what does that mean? And we talked, and so she told me that I don't have to take or hold on to other people's burdens. That's not my burden to hold on to. That's theirs. If I can help them direct it in a way that's going to be healthy, that's okay. But that's theirs. You know, I can't take it on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Okay, let's see. Do you ever feel like you have to apologize for aspects of your life? And if so, why?
Oh, I do. So I don't regret my life. I think that's what gave me that resiliency, and that's what taught me these things, and that's why I'm where I am today, right? And I believe that. Yet at the same time, I do regret I have regret for the people who have had to be a part of my victimization because of my pain. I think that's where my regret comes, and that's where I have to find ways of making amends, and I can't make amends to everybody, but I think that I can make amends in different ways by doing what I'm doing, by helping people, and maybe they change their lives and they don't victimize people or have to continue to make these. I'm trying in my life today, though, right? I'm trying to do stuff before I have to apologize. But I know one thing is that today in my life, I am accountable, and I will always be accountable. And if I act something or I do something, I will hold myself accountable to that standard. And because it's something that I didn't have growing up, and that's value and integrity, and I try to hold on to that the best way that I can. So, yeah.
I think you had value and integrity.
Yeah. And that's what I try to hold on to. I mean,
I think you had it the entire way through. I think it's the other people around you who didn't value you.
Yeah.
Or have integrity.
Yeah. It's funny you say that because one of the things I've said is that I always thought like when when we split, she gave up on me, and my mother gave up on me, and all these people, my whole life, school and all this stuff, I always used to think, people just, they give up, man. I used to tell girls, look, I'm just your practice boyfriend. You're going to leave it. You know what I mean? And so I would, but I'm the guy you don't want to be with. So, but then I realized, and this is since I've been in recovery, I realized that, nobody really gave up on me. I gave up on me, over and over when
you sabotaged everything.
Yes, and I tried, and
because
I just
you didn't love yourself enough.
Absolutely,
you couldn't see what other people saw in you.
No, I didn't love myself.
They could have screamed it in your face.
Yeah.
Tattooed it on your hand.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have believed them anyway.
No, not at all.
You had to find it yourself.
I still find it hard sometimes.
Of course you do. It's probably work that you'll be doing until the day that you close your eyes for the very last time.
Yeah. It's
learning how to love yourself is a very, very difficult thing to do, or challenging thing to do when you come from a background of abuse.
Yeah.
Significant trauma and abuse, because you didn't have somebody there to teach you what love is.
Right. No, that's absolutely true.
You've had to find it on your own. And you've had to find it in ways that most people don't have to look for it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because I used to tell myself, I love myself, you know what I mean?
Fake confidence. You're back. There's a very practiced front.
Yeah, I
Good
didn't
job.
even like me, right?
Yeah.
One of the things I tell the guys in relapse prevention class that I facilitate, I ask the guys, I says, because we talk, there's a group, one of the groups that we talk about shame in there, and I always tell them, and I ask them, I says, what I want you to do is go look in the mirror and go look into your own eyes, because we spend a lot of time in the mirror, brushing your hair, brushing your teeth, shaving, doing all this stuff, right? Makeup, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And we do it, but when do we really ever just truly look into your own eyes? So I challenge them to go I tell them, until next class, I want you to go in that mirror and I want to say, I love you.
Yes.
And I'm here to support you.
Yeah.
Just look into your eyes and do that. And
Yep.
most of them are like, I can't do that, man.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them say, that's kind of weird. I said, is it weird or is it scary? Right?
Yeah.
And,
I have people practice that with affirmations that we outline specifically of things that they weren't told when they were children.
Yeah.
And so it's very powerful to see and hear yourself hear and see things that you just never received. You just never received. And you will, I have them practice it enough that they roll through all of the emotions. And I'm like, you're not done with that until you can look at yourself, see yourself, and hear yourself say something, and you can take it in finally.
Right. Absolutely.
And it's actually neutral and you believe it, as opposed to you laugh one day because you're like, that's ridiculous. And then you're angry one day because you're like, I'm such a shithead. I can't believe I just did whatever I did. And then you're like all of the emotions until that gets purged, right? You're not really truly done with that. And I think that can be one of the most powerful expressions, is telling yourself I love you in the face of whatever pain, in the face of whatever you're dealing with, in the face of any delusionment, disappointment, anything. It can be very, very powerful to love you. What a great lesson. And if anything out of your life, I would say that's been the greatest gift, because you've finally been able to come back to loving yourself.
Yeah, and it's difficult, right? It's that imposter syndrome comes in. I don't know who you think you're fooling, right?
Well, but you've done so many things and changed so many lives at this point. I think you have a reason. I think you have a reason to be proud. You've repaired your relationships with your family. You have great relationships with your kids.
Oh, yeah.
So I think you have a lot of things that you can take in and allow yourself to be filled up in ways that maybe you didn't have the opportunity to do earlier in your life. You've cultivated a legacy of people who care about you now.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I think we're pretty close to time. Let's see if there's anything that...
I could tell you how I got into treatment really quick.
Yeah,
and
please
since the
do.
day I got clean.
Please do, because I know you've been clean and sober for 21 years
November
now, right?
4th was 21 years. So, which is because people told me I was going to be dead before I was 30.
I know.
And I woke up in a prison cell at 31 thinking, oh shit, what do I do now?
My life was pre-planned
oh my
before
God.
this.
Right, I'm like, oh shit, what do I do? So,
oh God, now I got to go live my life.
Yeah, well, and you know what I did when I got out. So, but then my PO, my parole officer.
Yeah, so what was the turning point?
Yeah, well, when I went to, I've been in a bunch of treatment centers. My PO says, you want to go to treatment? I'm like, nah. So I had to go to DePaul. I was kicked out of there. Then to Hooper, just a bunch of them for time, just a bunch of them in the, in the area. And then she sent me to the MRC, Volunteers of America Men's Residential Center. And so I got there, and I was there it was a 6-month program then, and inpatient, 6 months out. And when I got there, I was clean, and it was the first time I was ever clean outside of being locked up. And I'm like, this ain't so bad. I started feeling good about myself. There was that kind of mirror reflection without doing it, because I started feeling like this is okay, right? And we went and spoke to some kids at schools, which I love to do more than any. Oh my God. I
love it too.
I love it, and so I do that. And so we went to Centennial, but then
you want to know why you love doing it? Do you know why?
I think it's because I don't want any child to ever feel
the
what
same
I
way
felt.
we did.
I want them to know And that's my true
That
thing.
someone cares.
I want them to know you're not alone.
Yeah. And that someone cares.
Yes. And I'm really, because when I go to speak to kids, first thing I say to them is, look, I am not here to tell you what to do or what not to do with your life. I'm just here to tell you what happened, where I was raised, where I come from, and where I am today. And that's what I tell them. And we get these things written back. When one of the kids wrote that, they go, I appreciate that Jerome just told his story. He didn't tell us what we have to do. And which is because that's what they want. They don't want some old dude coming in telling them, hey, you're going to go to jail. They just want somebody
Didn't work
who
for
knows.
you.
Yeah. And many kids come up crying at the end and just
I'm
saying,
sure they
and
do.
they want to know, my dad, my mom, my brother, whatever, a friend. And,
you touch them.
Yeah. So when we did that, then I had gotten arrested from the program because my PO told me, look, you'd stop using drugs and alcohol, you'll be fine. She probably should have told me if you need to stop doing crime too, because I was doing I got to have money, right?
Yeah.
So I was doing some criminal activity, and my PO found out, came and arrested me from the program, took me to jail. First time I was ever uncomfortable in jail. I was like, I don't belong here anymore. I don't want to be here. That's where I was starting to be in my life, right? And I'm 41, I think, at this time. And then I was supposed to go back to VOA. Well, that's what my PO told me. I went back. I had to get on the waiting list. Waiting list was about a month, Andrea, right? And I'm like, I can stay clean. I've been clean for 3 months in jail, in treatment, 15 days in jail. I could do all this.
That's so hard.
Oh my God! That day I swore to God I could stay clean. That day I went to my friend's house. Within an hour, I drank a beer and a Jack and Coke. Did a shot of Jack.
So hard to get out of all of those friends. You lose all of those relationships that you've cultivated.
Yes,
and that was your family. And of course, you're going to go back to your family.
Yeah, and within 6 hours, I had a needle in my arm. Next day, I had my car, I had my dope, I'm going to date myself here a little bit. I had my pager, stuff like that. But so then I got back in. My uncle was dying, the one who gave me my first shot at the VA hospital. I got permission to leave there. I had somebody waiting there with me to get high. I got high. I called the center and said, I'm not coming back. Then I was sitting at the light rail for a couple months. This is a couple months later, but I'm sitting at the light rail, and these two girls walk up to me. And literally, I'm in my head saying, can I quit? Do I want to quit? Is this the way my life's going to be? Do I, all this stuff is going in my head, right? And these two girls walk up to me, and one of them says, hey, I know you. And I'm like, no, you don't know me. I'm thinking I'm being set up, right?
Yeah.
No, you don't know me because I'm on one too, right? I'm high, sorry. That's what being on one, right? And I've been up for a while. And she goes, no, I remember you. She goes, oh, yeah, your name is Jerome. Jerry, you came to my school and talked about drugs and alcohol. She said, I listened to every word you said, and I will never, ever use drugs and alcohol. I talked to that girl 5 months before that for maybe about 20 minutes. I did a presentation, and I knew right then what I wanted to do. I called my PO, and I said, I want to go back to treatment. She said, you need to call the director, who is Greg Stone. He's been on your show. And I called him. He said, you could come back. See, he wasn't supposed to do that, because that's what taught me that I'm the one that always gave up. Because, see, he said, no, you could come back, and gave me another opportunity. My PO never gave up on me. My PO always tried to help me. All these people, again,
trying to help you.
And I'm the one that's always giving up, but I'm saying that they do, right? So I ended up going back, getting ready to go back into treatment November 4th, 2003. And I said to myself, I need to change everything. And I changed my name from Jerry to what's on my birth certificate, which is Jerome. And I've been clean ever since.
Did you change all your friends and your relationships
too?
too?
Yeah. There's still people out there that I know and I see, of course, all the time. One of my best friends ever. I love this dude. He's always had my back. Me and him ran hard together. And I can't really see him all the time because he's still is active. And I just can't put myself. I'll tell you, I've been clean, like I said, 21 years, and 99.9% chance I could probably have a drink, or maybe I could smoke some weed, but I'm not willing to take that 1/10 of a chance. I am not that. I will not do it because I'm that scared of my addiction, and maybe 99.9 I get away with it, but all it takes is that one, and I'm not willing to take that chance. I'm not going to do it, and that's how I've lived my life, And I was an F student in school. I was kicked out of school. I didn't even go. I was at high school for 2 months, 3 months, and then I was kicked out, and now. Shoot, I got a master's degree in a university, and I'm like, what? Which I almost quit. When I failed the math test, I walked out of the school crying and said, my best isn't good enough. I can't do this. And my kid said, Dad, you're not quitting.
Yeah, it's hard.
And I kept going, and because that
my
shame piece came
on
up.
too.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
My daughter's like, no, you work too hard. You got to keep going.
Exactly. That's what they were like. Are you kidding me? But so much of that shame came back up.
Oh, I know.
Right?
It stirs it all. It stirs up all the
business.
unfinished
Yeah, absolutely. But I pushed through that, and I got good people in my life, and I reach out when I need to. And again, I'm accountable when I need to, I can't even leave the shopping cart in the parking lot. I tried.
Same.
I got to get out, and I got to walk it over and put it away every time.
That's hilarious. If you could go back 21 years, do you have any advice for that person?
Yeah, I would say don't give up on yourself. Look at the people who are truly trying to help you, and that because I truly believe in hope, and I would tell them to, no matter what, do not give up. Relapse is a process, and a lot of people get confused what relapse means. And in my eyes, relapse is that process. The use comes after the process. If we can become aware of the process, right, and stop, then we know. But we're so used to saying, oh, when you relapse, you've used. No, it's way before that. And I would tell them just, find other outlets. Don't give up. Reach out and find somebody. Look for somebody, right?
Don't be alone in your experience.
Yes, and
don't disconnect.
Right, your pain, embrace it.
Yeah,
embrace it, and let's move forward with it.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. So, find somebody to help you with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then give yourself that grace.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because none of us are perfect.
Oh my God, no.
It's such a pleasure. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Oh, no, this has been wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for having me here.
Of course.
This is wonderful. Yeah.
Thank you so much for tuning in and supporting this podcast. Your presence here means the world to me, and I'm truly grateful for your time and energy. If this conversation resonated with you or sparked any questions, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. I love hearing from each of you. Your insights, experiences, and curiosities always enrich this space. It's important to remember that trauma, often unseen and unacknowledged, can keep us from living fully in our joy. Through my intuitive healing process, I help release the weight of generational trauma, empowering you to reconnect with your true self and experience life in greater harmony. If you feel called to explore this deeper work, I invite you to book a one-on-one intuitive session or even embark on a personalized journey with a Phoenix Immersion, a 2-day retreat designed to support profound transformation. You can find all the details below. For those who've liked, subscribed, or left comments already, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your engagement means everything, and I'm deeply grateful for the connection we're building in this community. If you haven't subscribed yet, please consider doing so. I'm excited for all the healing and transformation we'll continue to explore together. As always, I'm forever grateful for you, and I cannot wait to see what unfolds next. Take care, and until next time.